Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier taking a look at the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series event at Del Mar on Saturday. It's the Grade 1 Bing Crosby Stakes and it's a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Let's take a look at the field in the headliner, Matt. Last year's Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, the very talented number 3 Roy H, returning from Dubai.
Yeah, you know, I tell you what, Roy H., when he is on his game, he is as good as any sprinter in North America. There's really no question about it. I think the question you have to have about a horse like this in this spot on Saturday afternoon is he going to be ready to go? And what were your thoughts on that most recent start? Because over in Dubai, I don't know about you, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought all things considered, he had a pretty good trip, and he just seemed a little bit flat.
He also was in against 2 toughies in Mind Your Biscuits and XY Jet, to be sure, but you're right, he's coming off a little bit of a layoff here. This is a big and decent field in the Grade 1 Bing Crosby Stakes, and his race before that, the Palos Verdes, we didn't really learn too much. It was a 4-horse field that was basically a paid workout, but we know what he can do on his best day, and I think you'd agree with me that he's the horse to beat. The number 4 is American Anthem, going out for the Bob Baffert bar, and he is 5-2 second choice on the track's morning line, and we are pre-scratches and program changes. This horse has earned triple-digit Beyer speed figures in his last 2 wins, but I have to admit, I was kind of underwhelmed by his win in the San Carlos as an odds-on favorite last time.
If American Anthem wins, I lose everything on Saturday because I was underwhelmed with the San Carlos. I thought his return effort at Churchill Downs was workmanlike, putting it kindly. This is a horse from a speed figure standpoint. He fits. He makes a lot of sense, but there's a couple things. Like, I'm with you. I just don't think I've been that impressed with what he's done visually. And the other thing that you have to keep in mind, this horse I maintain is much better at 7/8. It sounds like Bob Baffert agrees. 3/4, this might be a little bit sharp for him.
Those are the 2 morning line favorites. Let's take the rest of the field in post position order, beginning with number 1, Annie's Candy. One of 2 in here for trainer Ari Herbertson, and they ran 1-2 last time out in the Oak Tree Sprint at Pleasanton. Annie's Candy just got away with the easiest of leads. In a stakes race going 6 furlongs, he was able to go 23.73 and was loose by 2 lengths. That situation's not happening here against tougher horses. This is a nice horse and a great claim for 25-3 back, but he might be in too tough.
Agree 100%. This is a nice horse. I like what he's done out on the racetrack. That most recent start got away with murder on the front end. The problem is, boy, you're facing an entirely different pace situation and an entirely different level of class.
I am the president of the American Pastime Fan Club, the number 2, as he makes his first start as a 4-year-old. I thought he did really well in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last time, finishing 4th and only start number 7. That pace didn't exactly materialize for your typical Breeders' Cup Sprint. He was in behind horses. He eased out in the lane, and I thought he finished okay. And if you thought the rail was not the place to be at Del Mar on Breeders' Cup weekend, he was inside for the first, half mile or so.
I suppose if you're trying to take a look outside of the air quote logical horses in here, isn't American Pastime the one that you want to kind of gravitate toward? 4-year-old, you think there's going to be a forward move just maturation wise from 3 to 4. What he did as a 3-year-old was very impressive. He's earned 2 triple-digit Beyers. Both of those are competitive in here, if not making one of the main contenders. And I know he's been gone for a long time, but I think Bob Hess does a very good job. And look at those 2 most recent workouts. If you have any question about what this horse has left in the tank, 6 furlongs and 12 flat 2 back, and then a bullet most recently from the gate in 59-3, I think he's sitting on go.
He's a very talented horse, but it's a long layoff. He had some bone bruising after the Breeders' Cup. I like that they've taken their time. I wonder if it's next time, though, for American Pastime. Ransom the Moon won the Bing Crosby last year, although let's be honest, Matt, Roy H. was the best horse that day. Explain to the folks.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dreyfong, he decided to take a left-hand turn out of the gate, dumped Mike Smith, and then around the far turn, he floated about 15 paths wide, carried out Roy H. that entire way, and Ransom the Moon. Look, you and I, we're not going to complain about it. We cashed in. He shot up the inside, had an absolute dream trip, and was able to win that day. Ransom the Moon, though, I think you can make the case in the Kona Gold 2 starts back. He kind of had the same thing happen to him that Roy H. did last year in this race. Floated very, very wide. I thought he ran very well, all things considered. And Bobby Abu Dhabi, unfortunately, we don't know what's happened to him in recent memory, but he was a nice horse when he was out there on the track. And the most recent start in the Met Mile, I think he was far from disgraced. I think he's a big player.
I love that D'Amato ran him in the Met Mile. I think he ran very well. Limousine Liberal, the 3rd finisher, came back to win the Belmont Sprint Championship with a 99 Beyer. He's back to an appropriate distance and might get a nice setup. The 6 is Tribal Storm, the 2nd of the Ari Herbertson trained runners. This one just chased Annie's Candy in vain last time out when that one was able to get loose on an easy, uncontested lead. I think he might actually end up being the better of of the two Herbertson-trained runners, but after 18 starts, his best Beyer speed figure is only an 87, and he's running against horses that regularly Beyer in the triple digits.
The concern is, like you say, he's just not fast enough on paper right now. But of the two entrants here for these connections, I kind of like this one a little bit more simply because I think from a running style standpoint, he's not going to be up there on the front end. He's probably going to be mid-pack, if not even a little bit farther back. And if they throw it down early, I think he's going to come with a little bit of a run. If he got a piece, I think they'd be thrilled.
The 7 Stone Hands brought a 2-race win streak into the San Carlos last time out, and I just couldn't see the excuse. He was chasing the pace. American Anthem and St. Joe Bay, they were up on the pace as well, and he just was found wanting in the lane, and it makes me think that Stonehands at this point in his career is a low 90 Beyer's horse, and that's not going to get it done in the Bing Crosby.
Yeah, plain and simple, it feels like he's been exposed at this level at this point. He's a nice horse. He fits in there in those N2X sort of races or optional claimers. He just doesn't seem like he's graded stakes caliber.
St. Joe Bay called upon some of his back class last time out in his first race off the John Sadler claim. He showed speed inside of American Anthem and Stonehands, and he was dead game in the stretch at a gigantic price to just get beat by a head. I think you have an issue with that 105 Beyer speed figure.
Well, it just seems like it's not that it was out of left field because this horse has run fast in the past. It's just the way that race was run, there was really nobody making up any sort of ground. Now, I will say the race has come back pretty solid so far. Horse Greedy, the 3rd place finisher, he was the next out winner with a 94, and the 5th place finisher, came back to earn a 94 Beyer as well. I'm not totally convinced that he's going to get another favorable situation like that on Saturday. I think if he runs the 105, look, he's obviously a major player in here. I just think he's going to have to deal with a lot more heat and possibly from more talented horses than American Anthem.
Perfect segue into our Timeform US pace projector, because you'll note that red bar indicates that our friends at Timeform US believes that the pace will be fast. St. Joe Bay, the 8, expected to set the pace along with his old friend, the number 4 American Anthem. Both of those horses might be more effective at slightly longer distances, the 6.5, the 7. But what I like about St. Joe Bay this time around is he draws outside of American Anthem. If American Anthem is aggressively ridden to the front, St. Joe Bay will be in stalking position. He can win from that spot. And if American Anthem's a little sluggish, maybe St. Joe Bay takes the race to the rest of this field. I do think he's a contender off of that last race. Edwards going left is just a tough Calbred. He tries hard every single time. He's won 7 of 12. And talk about a class drop. That triple bend was salty.
Yeah, City of Light, he was a next out winner with a 107 Beyer. We mentioned Bobby Abu Dhabi coming out of that race. He was a next out winner with a 103. So like you say, from a speed figure standpoint, certainly getting some relief. Now the question becomes, do you think he can run that 102 that he did 2 starts back in that Cal Cup sprint race against open company? Because if he can register a 102, it at least makes him a fringe contender. I'm not convinced he can do it against open foes.
But unlike a couple that we've talked about, he might be better at 6 than he is at 6.5 and 7. And I think a good outside stalking trip in the second flight is coming. Gonna have to deal with a little bit of a layoff, but this horse does want to beat you. He's a true fighter. The 10 Touching Rainbows had a 4-race win streak snapped last time out in the Grade 2 San Carlos. And I feel the same way about him as I did about Stonehands. I know he didn't break very well and kind of rushed into the race, but other than that, I didn't see much of an excuse.
No, nor did I. I know Phil D'Amato remains very confident in this horse. I have to be honest, to me, that was him being exposed. And you only have to go 2 starts back to see that he was all out with Mo Candy. Now, Mo Candy, we know his game at this point. He does not change leads, period. And I think that's the only reason that Touching Rainbows was able to prevail that day. To me, this is just much too tough for him.
Last but certainly not least is Star Walking Dude, a 20-time winner with $1.7 million in lifetime earnings. Maybe these 8-year-olds lost just a little bit of zip off the fastball, although he was pace compromised last time out at Delaware, and that's not going to be the case on Saturday.
I was going to say he's going to get a much more favorable setup this time around, but you have to factor a couple of things in. You brought the age. At 8 years old, maybe he doesn't have 95 miles an hour anymore. Maybe he's got about 92, which unfortunately isn't going to work here on Saturday. The other thing that you just always have to factor in, we talk about California speed as opposed to East Coast speed. He just is not used to seeing paces that he's going to see on Saturday, and I think this is probably going to be too tough a spot.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 1 Bing Crosby Stakes, part of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series. A win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. You like Ransom the Moon to go back-to-back and belly-to-belly in the Bing Crosby.
Yeah, I just think from a pace setup situation, this is going to be a very cushy setup with a couple of horses that are going to go in front of him. I think he sits just off. Flavien Prat knows this horse very well. And again, the Met Mile, I thought that was a very pretty strong effort, all things considered. Consider it was a distance probably too far and against better horses. And if he can run back to that Kona Gold where he was floated as wide as he was off the far turn, I think he's at a big chance in here at what should be a fair number. He might not be a big number, but I would hope in that 9-2 range.
6-1 on the morning line for Ransom the Moon. I'm going to see if St. Joe Bay's last race wasn't a one-off fluke and that maybe John Sadler's figured out this old boy's good form, because when he was good, he was pretty good, and he'll be forwardly placed getting the jump on some of these turning into the stretch. But I'm using a heaping helping of Roy H in any kind of multiple race wagers. I'm going 8-3, 2-4 in the Grade 1 Bing Crosby, part of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series. Win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Sprint.